That's it's good to see. People are still jumping in, so I'll just give it 2 more minutes before we start.
Yeah, that sounds like a very good idea.
And although it is not allowed anymore, I'm wishing you all Happy New Year.
Yeah, I was also thinking about that.
How so it's not allowed?
Well, I think the officially, I mean, it depends on the country, I think, also.
Yeah.
But
I think we have the whole month of January. It's the Latin side of the French, you know, then you have more time.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my parents used to have a farm, and there they also people pass by the entire month of January.
Yeah. But I think what they sometimes say is the thing is that the 8th of January, that's it. But I also talked to German colleagues yesterday, and they said, well, in our part of the country that would not be possible because the 8th of January is a bank holiday, is a holiday and a national a London holiday anyway, so it doesn't work there as well. So I'll just keep on doing it.
Good.
Okay, so I think it's 5 past 10 now, so I think we can start. Although people are still jumping in, but that will probably happen along the way. Hi, Irina. So hi. So we are happy today that Jaco, you're willing to join us as a presenter now. You've joined us a lot already as a guest, but now you're actually also presenting some of your work. So you will be talking about the Delft Circularity Lab and the TPM perspective. People were already asking, what is TPM actually?
Yeah.
So I explained.
Yeah, I will say something about that too,
okay.
as a start.
Good. So the TPM perspective on circular industries and circularity of the energy transition. So yeah, I would just say, Jaco, the floor is yours. So if you can share your screen. And,
Good. So I'll start sharing my screen. And then I'll also put you back that I also can keep an eye on the meeting.
For us, it's not in presentation mode yet. It doesn't matter that much.
No, that's indeed the next thing I had to do. So really glad to be here today. Well, most of you will know me, but my name, for the ones that may not know me, my name is Jaco Quist. With the Faculty of Technology, Policy and Management at TU Delft. That's where you get the TPM perspective. So at my faculty, we combine technology, mostly at the system level, together with a policy and a management perspective. That makes us one of the interdisciplinary faculties at TU Delft. And that gives always a slightly different perspective. And I understand from the remark by René that I should have explained that a bit better beforehand, but I hope that this helps. So I will talk about, say, how, of course, say, at the Faculty of TPM, we work already a lot we collaborate a lot with CML, amongst others in the course program of Industrial Ecology. And we also work a lot on circularity already for some time, but we still think there's a bit more to be improved, a bit more to be expanded. There's also an ongoing discussion at TU Delft to establish a circularity network over there. And I tell a bit about the most recent developments. So it will be more about what is CE, what does it mean at TU Delft? And say, how are we putting that together as a network and then at my faculty as a circularity lab. So in that sense, it has more like a programming nature than it's real reporting on past research. That's maybe more for another time. Good. Having said that, I also would like to mention that working on this lab, circularity lab at the Faculty of TPM, I do that together with Gijsbert Korrevaar, who cannot be here today. But we do that in close collaboration. Good. And say we have as emerging topics at our faculty, or as growing topics, is the circular industries. Well, that links very nice to the hub at the Sustainability Center and to this series of talks, and circularity of the energy transition. That's very much about resource scarcity, critical materials. There's also key topics at those seminars over here. Good, so I like to give a contribution to that. Well, we do know that there's a growing discussion, or there's a growing attention, a growing support for circular economy, but the developments are still going too slow. So that's widely recognized also at this series of talks, and we need to go on because we have a growing urgency on that. Right, we see already the action plans coming, not only at the level of the EU, and in many member states. The Netherlands has been a front runner in that, but still it has to speed up, and I will get back to that. Good. We also know that there are very different views on circularity and circular economy. So I'm just, as a very brief recap, showing here the figure, the famous figure from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. But I also would like to point to many other visualizations that are around. I'm just showing a couple of them on the right hand of the slide based on work done by Venna Blomsma. We also know that there's a big debate about what is now the right definition, or what's a good definition for the circular economy. Or till a couple of years ago, Julian Kircher, a colleague from Utrecht University, he published a paper where he came to 114 definitions for a circular economy. He also concluded that quite some of them are more sustainability oriented, but it just reflects the huge debate on what a circular economy is and how we should define it, or how we could define it. Right, then going to but I would also like to mention, well, of course, no, we all agree that's a very important and a very diverse concept. So we need to speed up, or to make more work on closing, extending, and reducing loops. That has much to do with material scarcity. But we also see that there is quite some debate on what the circular economy then is. Should it focus on circularity? To what extent do you also bring the economy in? So we see also some growing criticism or emerging criticism on the concept of circular economy. Some argue that it's generally used too instrumentally. Well, to make products more circular, more in the sense of ecological modernization, and that is part of that is then also a bit limited on the social side and on the equity side and the justice side. And there we also see like a lack of research, also a lack of a research agenda, and much more work could or should be done over there. We also see that it's criticized for having a rather simplistic view on consumers. We need all this great circular innovations and this nice product to service switch and services. But we just, there's often the hidden assumption, or even the explicit assumption, that consumers just need to adopt that, and that they are expected just to start using these products and start using the services in the right way. But of course, we know from decades of sustainable consumption research that is really very complicated, and it's very difficult to get consumers to adopt sustainable products and get a move towards much more sustainable consumption patterns. So there's still, a need for more research so that we come up with better solutions, also at the product and the service level, so that we can prevent ending up with rebounds. And that's exactly the next point. So due to this, many of the things that happen in the circular economy research, or also in putting it into practice, are vulnerable to the rebound effect. So I already referred to that. Basically, if you oversee the discussions, then you can say this is very much about the emphasis is very much on solving sustainability and circularity issues with new innovations, new technologies, and that will then also allow to further growth, and for which we can develop new and better business models. But of course, this is still in the paradigm of ecological modernization, as solving environmental and sustainability issues with new innovations and new technologies. Whereas the discussion on the relationships to alternative economic models or with sufficiency in consumption is still, well, just growing, just emerging. And there's also, of course, the link with the sharing economy. We see in circularity and also with the shift to services that there's a lot of emphasis on sharing, and there's a lot of potential over there. But at the same time, if you look to the examples that we now see growing in the sharing economy, then we see that they can also come with bigger environmental impacts and with rebounds. Just think about Uber or just think about Airbnb. Right. What I would like to add here, and I'm sorry that the figure is still in Dutch, but I would like to point to one of the recent studies of the Social Economic Council of the Netherlands, and they published a report wherein they argued that we need both the energy transition and the materials transition to get broad prosperity or to get sustainable prosperity. And the point they made in this study was on that, say, the energy transition is far ahead or way ahead of the material transition, and we need to speed up the materials transition. So, but that's just one other term for this transition to a circular economy. To bring them better aligned or to integrate them better and to get the benefits and the economic growth or the economic sustainable prosperity from that. And that comes, of course, together with the growing debate on supply risks of critical materials that's also endangering or becoming a risk for further growth or further extension of the energy transition. So that's also what we see, what you have to take as a starting point for the Circularity Lab at the Faculty of Technology Policy Management. Say we want to work or to contribute on the circularity of the energy transition, but then more from perspective of our faculty. We want to work on circular industry, in particular on circular industry parks. And we want to add that, combine that with applying new concepts of ICT governance for circular economy. We have at our faculty also a logistics group, but we also have colleagues working on ICT. And there we see concepts being developed for other applications that also have huge potential and relevance for monitoring and tracing all the material flows that we're gonna get in a circular economy. What's also important from the perspective of my faculty is that we work a lot on responsible innovation and value aspects and governance, and we see justice, and we see also that as relevant starting points for developing further work on circular economy. Good. Of course, I already mentioned the term transition to a circular economy. The transitions are large-scale transformations of considerable parts of society, and those come together with huge changes, cultural changes, structural changes, technological changes, and organizational changes. But these kind of transitions, we know from transition studies, they are very complicated and have a huge complexity. And partly is that due to that there are normative aspects and value aspects and economic interests at stake in these transitions. But for a circular economy, we also know that it's not limited to a single domain, but that it applies to all sectors of production and consumption in our society, in our economy. So that will come together with huge governance challenges. in order to bring these promising circularity and circular economy initiatives that we see now well emerging and growing, to bring them to the mainstream system regime level. And on the figure, I'm just showing well, a typical transition figure that shows that any novelty, whether it's a social innovation or whether it's a technological innovation, it will start at a small scale at a niche level, but there is, well, considerable lead times are needed to further develop that and bring that and diffuse that widely into society at a level that it changes and influences mainstream systems and regimes in a way that it become more circular and more sustainable. Good. Circular economy can be related to the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm actually showing two figures here. There are even people that argue that circular economy may relate to all of the Sustainable Development Goals. I do not fully agree with that, but it's circularity is not a sustainable development goal in itself, but it has relevance if it is an important building block for quite a few of them. And I'm just showing two figures that I came across, and one on the left side says, okay, it's relevant to get clean water, clean energy, economic growth, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption, production, climate action. But you can also say argue that circular economy has most to do with the 12th Sustainable Development Goal on responsible consumption and production, but that it has also is also very relevant for a number of other Sustainable Development Goals. Here you also see these different views on what circularity is and how it relates to other sustainability concepts. Good. Just going on top of that, bringing that to the EU level and to the Green Deal and the energy transition. And there you see that they are developing already material demand scenarios in order to guarantee the further sustainable and renewable energy development in the EU in order to meet climate goals and in order to achieve put the climate action into practice. So this is a very good example that circularity and critical materials are not only key to the responsible consumption production sustainable development goal, but also a range, quite a few others. Good. Just continuing and say, we know, of course, that circular economy is a growing topic already for a decade. Of course, it has much older roots in an industrial ecology and in cleaner production. But as a concept, as a term, it's re-emerging or growing ever since around 2010. And we also see already quite some work being done at TU Delft, mostly at the faculty level, but we also see now, or we are working on connecting the different circular economy research groups and research work from different faculties in order to make a larger network that is university-wide. So we see the circularity lab that we're developing at the TPM faculty as part of a larger TU-wide circularity network for which we are now doing meetings just to catch up, to get the kind of integration. And we use these meetings and discussions to develop a larger proposal for our board for what we call Delft Circularity Initiative. And what has to give a platform function at the university as say we see there is more relevance in what we do on circular economy than at the faculty level, and it should become more important at the university level. Good. Then getting back to how our plans and work relates to that at the Faculty of Technology Policy Management, for which we are developing what we call then Delft Circularity Lab at TPM. Say our visions for that is that we want to do that in a transdisciplinary way to establish, to develop a co-creation platform that will bring together researchers from different disciplines, from different faculties, but also to collaborate with key actors for the circular economy transition from both policy and business, so in a transdisciplinary way. And we want to do that by envisioning together the future of circular economy or parts of our society, and to co-create that, but do that at a more systemic level, so that we can not only assess circular systems, but also can provide more sophisticated or more advanced or contribute to methods and tools for this and for decision support. And this is exactly what then the TPM perspective entails in the title of my presentation. And in that way, we want to make a contribution to the transition to a circular economy, and say in the way that we want to do that in a transdisciplinary way, using co-creation together with stakeholders. That's very much in line with the TU Delft statement on impact for society, which is now the current motto of the university. Good. Well, of course, we have detailed that a bit in missions and ambitions and strategy. The ambition and mission for the lab is that we want to conduct high quality interdisciplinary research and education on circularity, on circular economy, but then from our faculty socio-technical and system perspective, and from that then work with stakeholders. I said already a few things on that. And we want to make this, system socio-technical perspective from our faculty more recognized in circular economy research and also in education and decision making. So that what we do is also will be used by relevant actors in society. I don't think that I should say very much more about this, because I think this figure provides a better overview. For that, we see the 5 main activities, and we think that we should that visioning for a circular economy should be part of that in combination with scenario analysis. But say the ambition, the plan, and we're already developing activities on that, is to turn that into elaborate that into socio-technical models and simulations to learn from. And what we've seen from the literature is that we see quite a bit work now emerging at the input-output level of countries, and we also see much work emerging at the product and at the company level, and there's now some work emerging also on part level and on supply chain level. But we see that making models and making visions and making socio-technical assessments of that at the level of sectors and industries of society that do not only change or work on the material side, on the circularity side, but also take into account alternative economic conditions and models, that there's still a lot to do. So we see, therefore, a lot of relevance for the kind of things that we have been doing and want to do at TPM. When you have that kind of socio-technical model, so bringing the actors in, then you can use that to develop gaming, serious games that you can develop and conduct together with stakeholders, which is not only gives useful results outcomes, but also can contribute to awareness raising and capacity building. And then that should then also contribute to method development. This still says design for circular economy, but it should actually, it's better say tools and methods for circular economy. So we see that should not only consist of fundamental research, but it should also provide training and education. It should lead, in our view, to increase or extension of the tool and method set for circular economy. And we think that it's very important to do that together with stakeholders. So just say very briefly what we then do already on circular economy and teaching. And there you will see that starts with the collaborative program that we have, the joint program on industrial ecology that we have together with CML in Leiden. And of course, there's not only the industrial ecology program, but there's also, say, the Erasmus, the joint Erasmus Mundus Circle program that we do not only have with Leiden, but also with Chalmers, NTNU, and Graz University. And within that, we also have already a course on circular economy. And we also see circularity, circular economy as a growing thesis topic on which we have several thesis circles at our faculty. Good. Just to show recent results from student work. This one focuses on a circular industries park, and then our students are working have been working on shared refrigeration in industry parks. So we see already quite some shared energy on industry parks, and cascaded use of energy, but say shared cooling and shared refrigeration is a very topic that's still needs a lot more attention. We've also seen that compared to abroad, that in the Netherlands, say eco-industrial parks and circular business park, there's still a lot to do. So some of our students have been looking into the progress on circular and industrial symbiosis and circular business parks in the Netherlands, and how to organize and how to bring that further. And say we are using these kind of results to develop follow-up proposals on that. Good. So a little bit more on how then circular economy and circular economy research resonates or fits in the research activities that the faculty and already are taking place. So I already mentioned that we have this ICT governance group, or even in our department, and they've been developing governance framework for ICT for customs. And this kind of frameworks that have been developed are also have a lot of potential also to monitor and track material flows in a circular economy. We have a logistics group in our department, and of course, when we move to a circular economy, we do not only bring the materials to consumers, to marketplaces, but you will get a lot of reverse logistics. So circular economy cannot do without improved logistics concepts, and we need more research for that. We also work already on symbiosis networks, for instance, in urban agriculture, but also in industrial clusters. We elaborate that into agent-based models. And say, of course, we should not forget when we have these new innovations and new technology, and then they need to be assessed not only on their environmental impacts, but also on their social impacts. We've also been working quite a lot already on industrial symbiosis over the last few works, and we know that extending actually from industry parks to circular business parks. And we also see quite some new activities and initiatives in civil society by local initiatives, by citizen-led initiatives. So there we see think that what has been done so far on social innovation for the energy transition, that should be expanded to the transition to a circular economy as well. Of course, there's already quite some work being done on circular business models, but we would also like to extend that at our faculty. And of course, when you look to this transition perspective, novelty emerges from niches, then more work needs to be done on the evaluation of the circularity pilots. We see many pilots now emerging, cities and regions, but of course we need a proper evaluation of these kinds of initiatives to take advantage of that. And as I mentioned, to say if you we need more visions, more scenario work to map the potential of circularity on the long term at larger scales. Good. So just pointing to some work that has been done over the past few years, or is just being started at TU Delft. We have started the climate action program. Within this climate action program, there we have a flagship on circular economy, and two of these initiatives or two of the projects that have been approved within this climate action plan are recovery on critical materials. That's being done by Malte Vogt. He has presented here actually some months ago, but there is also a project started on scaling up the circular economy by using an integral design process. At my faculty, there have been the Zero Brine project, so how to make wastewater that is too salty to reuse that, so bringing circularity in that. And we had some recent work done by Casper Lange on circular business modeling experimentation. We also had the PhD work done by Shiva Nori. She worked on industrial symbiosis in Iran as a typical example of an emerging country. And we just started on a reuse project, reuse of solar panels project in Amsterdam together with the AMS. We've been working on a social innovation for sustainable treatment of European metals. It was a project within the EIT on raw materials. And we've been looking into zero waste concepts applied to Indonesia. And we've been looking into responsible sourcing in relation to critical materials, because the issue with critical materials is not only their criticality, but some of them there are also, of course, some of them are conflict materials, and say we have the intransparent supply chains. Good. So part of that, what is ongoing, is the ENCORE project. That's about enabling carbon dioxide and how to reuse that. That's I would call that the summum of circularity. We can get so far that carbon dioxide can be captured and reused for other applications. And say, as an example of a social innovation at the bottom-up side that we have been looking as part of the GLAMOUS project into the case of repair cafes in the Netherlands, and in particular repair cafe development in the province of South Holland, so our own province. Good. I think I'll let this one go, because I just wanted to point to interesting student work over the last few work. This is work done by Graham Brown, industry ecology graduate by now, and she looked into urban agriculture in The Hague. Well, urban agriculture is not necessarily very circular, but she narrowed down that to what are the most circular initiatives in The Hague, and she looked into what is their relevance for making circular urban agriculture more circular at a level of a city. Of course, there you come across initiatives as using coffee waste for mushroom growing, and that's well, development that started in Rotterdam, but that's say now spreading or diffusing to many other places in the Netherlands, including The Hague. We see some advanced vertical farming, which is more circular, but also requires quite some energy. And you still have some issues with the cost side. But when you look to circularity in say urban agriculture, then you can also look to permaculture as a typical example, though low tech, but with a good circularity record. Good. I also would like to point to circularity in building pilots. And that's based on work also by industrial ecology students some years ago that we published in the Journal of Cleaner Production. There we look to some advanced circular building cases in the Netherlands. That included Park 2020. That included the Alliander office of the utility in Duiven in the east of the Netherlands, which was a renovation case rather than a newly built example. And we looked to the Herema office, which is an example of sustainable demolition. And I look quickly. Yeah, I think what was interesting is that what was found in these cases that they all say if the ambition, the circularity ambition, the sustainability ambition was larger in the beginning. So if they made a stronger sustainability and circularity vision, you saw also that back in the design and in the construction. So in that sense, the demolition case of the Herema office was a bit different than the other two. They only did like responsible demolition, but they did not really do circular building, because after that they used different materials or new materials to build a new office. But it was very interesting to see that when you renovate and you reuse materials as much as possible within the renovation, that you can achieve very good results. What we also found in this case comparison is that if you want to make that circular, you should not only look at the building and the design, but you must also look at the operations phase, and you must also look at the end of life phase. And if you really want to bring that well in design, you have to bring those actors into the design process in the very early beginning. So that led to a tool in which say a building design tool was adjusted for circularity, and which then reflects that you have to bring these relevant actors from the operations phase and from the end of life phase, that you have to bring them also in the development, the design phase in the beginning. There's a bit more to say about that, but I think I'll better leave that for another time. Also looking on the thing. Because I would also like to refer to one example of sustainable solid waste management. There's also an example based on student work of a couple of years ago, where as part of developing scenarios for the future of solid waste management in a major Indian city, a million city, and there it made very clear that if you want to solve the waste problem there, you should not only make the next step in waste management, but you must also develop already for them a circularity and zero waste scenarios in order to avoid lock-ins and path dependencies that may constrain more circular solutions on the long term. Good. I just look further. Yeah, I'm already moving towards the end of my presentation, and say I would like to take the opportunity that there are about 3 forthcoming very relevant meetings and conferences for circular economy. Of course, in the first place, there will be the Industry Ecology Conference early July in Leiden. That's co-organized by CML and the faculty of TPM. That will be back-to-back to the roundtable on sustainable consumption and production, and that will take place in Wageningen, in the Netherlands, too. And I'm just mentioning those two conferences because these, although they talk about sustainable consumption production or industrial ecology. These are like major key conferences for circularity as well. And I would like to add to that in the Netherlands, so we have established, or we are developing, the Dutch Academic Network on Circular Economy. And there have been a couple of meetings so far, and the fourth meeting will take place in June at TU Delft. And that brings me then already to the conclusion. I touched about quite some things. So circular economy is a quickly growing topic, not only in the Netherlands in experience, but also as a research topic at the Faculty of Technology Policy and Management, as well as at TU Delft. And for that, we bringing that together in our faculty in a circularity lab. That has started, but we're still working on that. And from that, we were seeking collaboration with other faculties, with other research groups, as well as with stakeholders in practice. And we do this development especially via projects. So we have started this reuse of PV in Amsterdam. We're working on a large proposal for circular business parks. And we're also developing further work on circularity for the energy transition. And that's just where I would like to leave it for today. And I'm happy to take any questions or any responses.
Thank you, Jaco. I will give a real hand. There probably see some virtual hands as well. Thanks for this nice overview. I think this really helps to understand what you guys are doing at the TPM and how it connects also to the thing that we're doing in LDE, the Circular Industries Hub. So the floor is open for questions. I already saw some questions in the chat. Maybe Finn, you were the first one to ask a question about the governance aspect. Maybe you can repeat that here.
Yeah. I'm from RSM, and my background is supply chain management, in particular procurement. So I was just wondering that it was a very informative overview. So I'm sure some of my colleagues, Stef Lemmens, Rob Zuidwijk, Dietrich, would be interested, if not already informed about these initiatives. I was just wondering about the governance term. We typically look at that from, say, an inter-organizational aspect between supply chain actors. And we had some discussion with David in the chat what your scope was. And maybe it is indeed, in your case, understandably more broader, also to include government versus business governance.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Say governance has a lot of can be defined or operationalized in different settings. So we also have, of course, the corporate governance, governance in a business context. Say most of the time, in general, say governance at say our faculty is like multi-actor governance. So we consider society as and the grand challenges related to circularity, sustainability, and climate actions as huge challenges or huge societal challenges, which you can only, or which you also have to approach from a multi-actor system. So taking a public government perspective on that. But of course, we do know that the government, as a hierarchical actor, that concept that doesn't work, or it doesn't work that way. So you, if you want to really achieve transitions to sustainability and to circular economy, you take all the relevant actors from the different domains of government, business, research, and civil society into account. Of course, when you go to the level of an industrial park, a business park, and say, or you go to the level of a supply chains, this is you need to attune to that. But for us, it's never within a single company. It's always, say, a multi-organizational, multi-actor context.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions from the audience? either raise a hand or just open your mic.
Hi, I had a sorry. I had a question. I don't know if it's too specific or, but I got triggered when you mentioned the circularity for industrial parks, and I was wondering, in your opinion, what would be at the moment the biggest obstacle to more circularity in industries? Because I don't know, is it it's too expensive, or the technology isn't quite there, or there's just people are not used to doing this? What is the biggest problem right now?
Yeah, I also say the cost, the economic feasibility, and the cost aspects are of course very, very important in a business context. I say, but as I say, we have a working group on say circular business parks, and there we actually concluded that the biggest challenge or the biggest issue is say an organization or a social innovation issue. So it's the current practice, the current way of doing that constrains to move further or to speed up to more circular industry parks or circular business parks. As I say, in terms of technology, we have quite a bit available. There must also be further development, but really putting that in practice, that is one big hurdle, and the other hurdle is that it comes with investments.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions?
More of an observation. I think it's really, thank you, Jaco. It's really informative, and we work together with other colleagues that I see in the wider list, some people not here today, on the DCI group. I think one of the things that you helped me reflect on, and we were busy in the chat, you probably couldn't see it, Jaco, when we were, but we come up with some exciting things, and Renee and I have got a little action to do. It's going to keep us busy for a while. But one of the things that I think about a lot more and more, and then there was a discussion started around critical materials, which we then, Renee and I were just throwing in lots of links, and there's a course of that Renee and I have both been involved in that's it's free and open and available. It's on edX. So you can just, if anyone's sitting there and thinking, hold on, I don't understand this critical materials thing, rather than wading through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reports and getting confused, you can do the course. Or at least dip in and out of the course till you've got enough information. But it's around circularity, and because this is the industries, circular industries talks, circularity for industries, let's say, and material demand and supply. And at first glance, it's like, okay, so what we need to do is, as you showed in all your examples of the many models that we've got, look, we close the loop. We just put things round, and then it's a much better situation, job done. But of course, the devil's in the detail, and as we get deeper and deeper into this, the requirements, the size, and I put in the chat as well, and I said this is a controversial statement, but nobody responded. I said the only problem to a circular industries transition is time. We don't have enough time. There is no other barriers. We can talk about the economic system can't cope with this. Well, we create the economic system. We can change it. We can do things, but we don't have enough time for the size and scope and scale of the transition that we're trying to go through. And therein, and I'm sort of wandering off here now, but let me just try and make it more concise. It's the complexity which is bewildering. And once people really get into the depth of the material demand and supply constraint and the time barriers, there's a real danger. And I sometimes struggle with this myself, and I'm sure other colleagues do as well. It's like you're almost frozen. It's like, I cannot see, what am I proposing here? Where am I going with this? So I think that's one of the big advantages of having these talks and hubs and groups and the DCI, and within my own faculty, we have the Circular Built Environment hubs. We have a space where we can all sit there and sort of share our pain, if you like, like what am I trying to do here? Where am I going with this? And then like, it sometimes helps to hear other colleagues go, yeah, I know what you mean. It's really hard, isn't it? So I think it sounds a little bit soft, but it's like it's almost like we're in a sort of psychological hand-holding exercise where we support each other mentally as much as in terms of our scientific research. So I really value that, and I thank colleagues who are here who helped me with that.
Okay, then thanks for your observation.
Yeah, thanks. I completely agree, Dave. It really helps sometimes to just share the frustration, but also like the uncertainty about, okay, so we have all these things all these challenges that are which we are confronted with at the same time, basically. So how are we going to cope with that? So yeah, interesting times. I see also a hand raised, Paul.
Yeah, hi. I had another meeting, so I wasn't able to join all of it. Just to reflect on those really interesting points, David. You know, I think this also reflects on our communication to different groups outside, of course. And what is it that buys us more time? You know, if these are really difficult structural changes, and so do we have to start talking about you know, significant demand side sort of emergency measures? So I think the implications are really interesting from that sort of social science side of things as well, and sort of the broader system dynamics. And I just like to raise that because it's something I struggle with all the time in my communication. Because when you're asked a question on this, you can go down so many different avenues. But then, you know, what do you think are the really important points? And more, I think maybe this demand side thing is going to be just absolutely critical to bring up over and over again that a lot of policymakers aren't talking about. But I thought those really interesting points, David, just provoked me there in terms of how do you then do that?
Yeah, actually, I refer to that not so much in the say the second part of the presentation, but I raised a few criticisms or critical remarks on the concept of the circular economy, and where what you're saying here links very well to say I did not stress so much the urgency what we see with the material, but of course we do see that in the circular economy discussion that they do rather simple about the demand side. On the one hand, taking consumers too instrumental, that they just will do the right thing with the right circular innovations and services. And while we know from decades of sustainable consumption research that it's very difficult to get consumers in sustainable and pro-environmental behavior. And on the other hand, we see that say the urgency and I also pointed to the study, or it's not really an advice, but there's some implications from the Socioeconomic Council where they link the energy transition and the materials transition, or that's a transition to that's the circularity transition, and that they are strongly intertwined, and that they strongly influencing each other, and that for that reason the materials transition should get more priority because it's quite a bit behind. Well, the energy transition is already further developed. And of course, I think, and I agree with David and also what you're saying, that the urgency of the material issues and the critical materials also for the energy transition is well, not so far yet. The awareness is not. Well, it should. The awareness on that should raised and communicated much better. We do not have a really good idea yet well, maybe in this group or some in this group or some scenario studies, but say what are really the implications of the well, and I'm not talking about the demand side for consumers, but what are really the implications of the material requirements for the energy transition, what that means for the long term, what it's just getting raised, being put on the agenda. But the implications of that are so huge that we're still have a long way to go. Actually, with Sustainability Center, because most of the people here are from either Leiden or Rotterdam or TU Delft, I think that we see that together we could do some through collaboration. We could make contribute to that. further based on what has already been doing, what's already being done and what has been done, and there are some discussions going. Renee knows much more about that, or is more involved than I am, but it's still a very small circle that's talking about that.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree, Jaco. And it is a small circle, but at the same time, also what you can see is one of the things that I now kind of observe is that there are all kinds of initiatives in different groups in different places that are basically doing the same thing or thinking about the same issues. And it is also worthwhile, I think, also to make sure that we at least know of each other what we are doing. So to create these links and to have also these broader meetings in which we actually exchange information, because I think we were just talking in the chat with Dave about, well, we should make an inventory of the projects that are related to this topic within at least the LDE universities. And Dave rightfully said, well, probably it's much more than we now think it is. And he is probably right. And that in itself is already interesting, right? I mean, and of course it's impossible to be aware of everything, etc. But at least to have some kind of idea about things that are going on might already help, I think, and that is something that we can that's something that we can do within LDE at least. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a very nice step, because it's the basis to move forward from, and also to ensure that we make the best use, or that we use all the resources that we have already, and all the knowledge that we have already developed. And there are already these MOOCs. There's a lot of things have been prepared. Well, it might be a bit of a bold remark, but to just say it's just waiting to put it all together or related to each other a bit better than we have been doing, because we've been working very hard on developing single things. But now we need to look back for the overarching picture and agenda of that.
Yeah. I completely agree. Well, we run out of time, unfortunately, for now. Fortunately, there will be a next talk for which you're all invited. So we have these talks regularly. I can also see the audience growing and growing more diverse. I'm really happy with that. I hope we can keep on that aspect of these talks. So thank you all for joining again, and hope to see you during the next talk.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And thank you, Jaco, of course.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for this discussion.
Thanks, Jaco. Nice one.
Yeah.
Take care.